Speaker.
Item 6. The motion standing in the name of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance.
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may I seek your consent and the general assent of members present to move that the proceedings on the item under discussion be exempted from the provisions of Standing Order number 48, subsection 8, to remove the time limit in respect of Deputy Prime Minister's speech.
I give my consent. Does the Leader of the House have the general assent of honourable members present to so move? Leader, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the proceedings on the item under discussion be exempted from the provisions of Standing Order number 48, subsection 8, in respect of the Deputy Prime Minister's speech.
The question is, as moved by the Leader of the House, as many as of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. DPM Heng.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that this Parliament affirms the vital importance of members of Parliament maintaining high standards of integrity and accountability. Notes the judgment in Aljunied-Hougang Town Council and another versus Sylvia and others, and another suite, SGHC 241, where, among other things, the court held that Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Khiang had acted dishonestly and in breach of the fiduciary duties, and their conduct lacked integrity and candour, and Ms. Lim and Mr. Lau were fully aware that their conduct was of questionable legality. Notes that Ms. Lim remains a Vice Chairman of Aljunied-Hougang Town Council, and Mr. Lau an elected member of Aljunied-Hougang Town Council, and calls on Aljunied-Hougang Town Council to discharge their responsibilities to their residents by requiring Ms. Lim and Mr. Lau to recuse themselves from all matters relating to and oversight over financial matters. I've moved this motion because of the High Court's findings. Mr. Speaker, may I distribute the Supreme Court's summary of the judgment as Annex 1 to my speech?
Yes, please.
The full judgment was released to the public on 11 October 2019.
Please proceed.
If there is an appeal against the judgment, the Court of Appeal will decide on the merits of the appeal in due course. The appeal may take months to conclude. Given the very serious findings about, 1, the dishonesty of particular members of this House, and 2, the misuse and loss of public funds, the question is, what is going to be done in the interim, pending the appeal, if there is one? Will the Workers' Party provide the House with any guarantees to uphold accountability and transparency between now and the appeal? This motion is also about the integrity and character expected of public officials and MPs. It pains me to move this motion, in particular because one of the 2 MPs named in it, Mr. Khiang, if I may be permitted a personal note at the outset, he is someone for whom I've always had a high regard. I think many on both sides of the House share my sentiment. But there are important questions of public interest to consider. I will mention just a few at the outset. Millions of dollars of public funds are involved. The High Court has found Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Khiang to be dishonest and deceptive, and to have failed in their duty to the Town Council. Indeed, Ms. Sylvia Lim has admitted under oath that she had lied to the public. Pending the appeal, if there is one, this House is entitled to ask, are Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Thia Khiang going to continue to have oversight and decision-making power over public funds in the Aljunied-Hougang Town Council? And what do those in charge of AHTC intend to do about the findings in the judgment? I should add that from February 2013 to September 2015, the Town Council included Punggol East and was known as AHTC. For simplicity, I will refer to the Town Council consistently as AHTC so as not to cause confusion, so as not to confuse listeners. I will deal with the judgment and the questions raised following the judgment. The judgment is the latest chapter in a saga that has been 8 years in the making. Throughout this long time, the Workers' Party has consistently and repeatedly refused to take responsibility for the problems in its town council. This is lamentable. The Workers' Party's town councillor have persistently resisted disclosure, offered countless excuses, and made a litany of misleading statements to the public, in Parliament, and before the courts. They have not been transparent in their dealings. In essence, what happened is simple. The Workers' Party wanted their friends to manage the town council. The honest and honorable thing to do, if one wants to appoint one's friends, is be transparent and open about it. Disclose all the facts so that a fair decision can be made. And call an open tender so that your friends compete with the market. And this is important. You cannot allow your friends to overcharge. What the Workers' Party did was the opposite. They told untruths and manipulated the circumstances so that FMSS would be appointed, whatever the case. They did not care whether FMSS was the best candidate to serve residents. Indeed, Mr. Lau said that he would have appointed FMSS even if a cheaper, more experienced contractor had put in a bid. To guarantee FMS's appointment, Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Thia Khiang waived the tender, even though the law required it. They misled their own town councillors, including their own fellow MPs in the GRC, and gave a false reason for them for not calling a tender. And they removed the existing managing agents and appointed their friends in FMSS, though FMSS had less experience and charged more. This overcharging, abuse of public funds was inexcusable. What they did was in breach of their fiduciary duties. At every turn, they told untruths and distorted the facts, and knowingly sacrificed their residents' interests in favor of their friends. After having misled their own town councillors to get FMSS appointed without a tender, they then repeatedly misled the public and Parliament on why they had hired their friends in this manner. They misled their own auditors too, and refused to give them documents which would have revealed the truth. Mr. Speaker, they did all this to cover up their wrongdoing. It is a tale of deception spun out over 8 years, which finally unraveled in court. And not just in one court. It unraveled in 3 different courts, including the Court of Appeal. The residents have suffered. Under the management of the Workers' Party's friends, the Town Council ran up deficits. A surplus of $3.3 million under the previous management became a deficit of $2 million by the 3rd year of the new regime. And meanwhile, their friends made big profits, running into millions of dollars. Allowing your friends to help themselves to public funds that is a tale that belongs to the third world, not Singapore. In two different trials, the courts reached judgments that show that the Workers' Party MPs have misled Parliament. First, in 2015, and now in the latest judgment. Even so, the Workers' Party maintains that they are not answerable either to the courts or to Parliament. Indeed, they have taken the position in court that as elected MPs, they are not answerable to the courts for any serious mismanagement or misspending of public funds. Both the High Court and the Court of Appeal disagreed with this submission, which sought to place the Workers' Party MPs above the law. It was a remarkable position for the Workers' Party to take. They are saying that no matter what wrongs they commit, and no matter how much public funds are misused, they are not answerable, and nothing can be done to them in court. This was said in the hope that the electorate would not pay attention to their wrongdoings. Therefore, everything could be covered up and forgotten. How do we get to this state? Many in the House will remember that it was AHTC's own auditors who first issued a disclaimer of opinions on its accounts back in 2013. The auditors raised serious questions about the adequacy of the Town Council's financial and accounting systems. The responsible thing for Ms. Sylvia Lim and the Workers' Party Town Council chairman then to have done at that moment was to come clean, accept that there were issues and fix them. But she did not. In the next audit in 2014, they hid details of the transactions with their friends and refused to give the documents and information to their own auditors. The auditors were alarmed and again issued a disclaimer of opinion on the accounts. But the issues they highlighted were not rectified. And so in 2014, Auditor General carried out an audit. But like AHTC's own auditors, Auditor General's Office, AGO, too was obstructed by the Town Council. The AGO report stated that despite repeated requests for critical documents, the Town Council did not produce them. Still, the 2015 AGO report uncovered serious shortcomings, which cast doubt on whether the Town Council was properly managing public funds. Parliament debated the AGO report in February 2015. Even at that point, instead of taking ownership and rectifying the problems uncovered by the AGO, the Workers' Party's MPs, and Ms. Sylvia Lim in particular, made excuses. They repeated in this House their objections to the AGO report, objections which the AGO had already addressed. Instead of dealing with the issues, they sought to obfuscate, throw doubt on AGO, pretend that everything was fine. The Law Minister said in this House that the conduct of Ms. Sylvia Lim and her fellow town councillors was unlawful and that they were in breach of their fiduciary duties. Ms. Sylvia Lim's response was to shout, "Rubbish," brazenly denying their unacceptable actions using unparliamentary language. Despite their refusal to acknowledge the issues, then Minister for National Development, Mr. Khaw Boon Wan, patiently advised the Workers' Party to take immediate steps to resolve the problems. He urged them to take concrete steps to recover the losses and make restitutions to their residents. And he suggested commissioning a forensic audit. Sadly, the Workers' Party did not do anything. I do not know what they were expecting. Perhaps they felt that somehow the public would forget and give them a free pass, since they were an opposition party. They were not used to running a GRC, so the public would give chance. Indeed, shortcomings resulting from inexperience can be forgotten, but dishonesty, deliberate and repeated deception to profit one's friends cannot be forgiven or swept under the carpet. We would not be here today speaking about these judgments if the Workers' Party and Ms. Sylvia Lim, in particular, had even at this late stage in 2015, been serious about setting things right, setting things straight. If they had corrected the problems, got their friends to make good the losses, it could all have been very different. But the Workers' Party refused to acknowledge the issues and flatly refused to deal with them. In view of the Workers' Party's inaction, despite the debates in Parliament, the Ministry of National Development and then the Housing Development Board, HDB, applied to the High Court to deal with the matter. Both the High Court and the Court of Appeal took a serious view of the matter. Tellingly, both had sharp remarks about the Workers' Party's conduct. To help members follow the Court's findings, I wish to distribute Annex 2, quotes from the judgments, to my speech. Mr. Speaker, may I have your permission to distribute the annex?
Yes, please.
The High Court observed that Ms. Sylvia Lim's statement in Parliament in 2015 that the Town Council had done due transfers to the sinking fund was curious because of what she had failed to mention. The Court described Ms. Sylvia Lim's behavior with the Latin phrase, suppresso veri, suggesto falsi. Suppression of the truth is equivalent to the suggestion of what is false. The Court of Appeal said that it was clear that there had been breaches of the statutory requirements. It found lapses and internal controls which exposed the Town Council to risk of loss of money or valuables, inadequate oversight of related party transactions, where key officers acted despite conflicts of interest, and that the Town Council had not seriously considered whether and how to recover possible sums due from wrong payments. Thus, the Court had already taken a view on this matter as early as 2015, after the AGO report was debated in Parliament. The Court of Appeal ordered the Town Council to appoint independent accountants, despite the Workers' Party's resistance. AHTC then responded to the Court of Appeal's order cynically, nominating accountants to do the forensic audit, but failing to provide enough information on their proposed accountants' experience and expertise. When HDB asked for additional information, AHTC did not respond. The Court of Appeal noted the Town Council's lack of rigor and basic due diligence in how it nominated accountants. On the Court of Appeal's direction, AHTC eventually appointed KPMG LLP, or KPMG. KPMG too uncovered serious shortcomings. Among them, one, that the Town Council had not been justified to waive tender before appointing FMSS as its managing agent. There were conflicts of interest in the Town Council's appointment of FMSS and FMSI. FMSI, which was engaged by the Town Council to provide essential maintenance and lift rescue services, was a sole proprietorship owned by the Secretary of the Town Council, who was also part owner of FMSS. The people that formed FMSS and FMSI were the Workers' Party's friends, trusted, loyal supporters. FMSS directors and shareholders were the Secretary, General Manager, and Deputy General Manager of AHTC, respectively. 2, there were pervasive control failures, cutting across key areas of governance, financial control, financial reporting, procurement, and records management. I will mention 3 of these. The town councillors relinquished an unacceptably high degree of financial responsibility to conflicted persons. All of the payments of FMSS, FMSI were co-signed by the conflicted persons. There were overpayments to FMSS and payments to FMSS without certification of work performed or without the requisite co-signature of members of the Town Council. There were also numerous breaches of the Town Councils Act and Town Council financial rules. In the meantime, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, retained by Pasir Ris Punggol Town Council after Punggol East became part of Pasir Ris Punggol Town Council after the 2015 general election, submitted its own report. It too raised questions similar to KPMG. Again, it found that AHTC had not been transparent and had delayed granting PwC access to all necessary documents and information. In view of these serious flaws, the Court of Appeal then directed the Town Council to appoint an independent panel to take such action as may be appropriate to safeguard residents' interests. The Workers' Party chose the members of the independence panel. It appointed the independence panel. HDB was consulted and had no objection. Mr. Pritam Singh, on behalf of AHTC, welcomed the appointments and called the independent members eminent, as indeed they were. Chaired by Mr. Philip Jeyaratnam, Senior Counsel, the other 2 members of the independence panel were Mr. Srinivasan, Senior Counsel, and Mr. Ong Pang Tai, Managing Partner of KPMG. The independence panel went through the facts and concluded that the Town Council's monies had been wrongly spent. On behalf of the Town Council, it decided to sue the key persons involved, including Mr. Lau Tia Khiang, Ms. Sylvia Lim, and Mr. Pritam Singh, for losses arising from wrongful payments by the Town Council. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must emphasize, it was not MND or HDB that sued Mr. Lau Tia Khiang, Ms. Sylvia Lim, and Mr. Pritam Singh. It was the independence panel that did so. The independence panel appointed by AHTC, acting on behalf of AHTC, sued AHTC's councillors. This is how we got here today. The Workers' Party has persistently refused over 8 years to be transparent about what it had done. At numerous points over the last 8 years, they could have acted. In 2013, they could have acted after their own auditors issued reports before the AGO stepped in. In 2015, they could have acted when AGO made its report and Parliament debated the matter. In 2016 and 2017, they could have acted when KPMG and PwC issued their reports. But at every turn of the way, there was obfuscation instead of transparency, resistance instead of accountability, denial instead of honesty. Hence, the matter came before the courts to decide. Following a 17-day trial, the court issued a 329-page judgment which established the following important facts and conclusions. 1. Contrary to the Workers' Party's claims, including claims made in Parliament, there was no urgency that warranted the waiver of the tenders for the managing agents and services under the Essential Maintenance Service Unit, or EMSU. The court found that Mr. Lau Thia Khiang and Ms. Sylvia Lim had deliberately delayed calling a tender in order to provide themselves with a convenient but false excuse to waive the tender. In the trial, the Workers' Party accepted that they only needed 2 months to call a tender. They could have asked CPG, the previous managing agent, to continue providing managing agent services for far longer than that. They had ample time to call for a tender, but deliberately delayed doing so in order to create an excuse not to call a tender. This conduct is inexcusable. In fact, the court found that there had never been any intention to call a tender in the first place. The 2 Workers' Party MPs had already decided on FMSS within days of the 2011 general election and had hid that fact from other councillors. They were determined to appoint their friends. They admitted in court that they had decided to engage FMSS. They also admitted that they had rejected other parties who were interested in providing managing agent services. And as I said earlier, if one wants to appoint one's friends, there is a proper, transparent process to do so. The Workers' Party deliberately chose the wrong way, and the 2 hid the truth from their own town councillors and the public. Among the Workers' Party's town councillors, they had one experienced town councillor who had been chairman of another town council for 20 years, and they had 3 lawyers. They should have known that a tender could only be waived under very special circumstances. And they should also have known that these special circumstances did not exist when they waived tender in this case. If they had called a tender and their trusted friends had been the only bidders, they could then have appointed their friends. Even if there had been several bids, they could have still chosen to appoint their friends, provided they acted honestly and properly. Explain why they were appointing their friends, record the reasons in the minutes, and be prepared to defend the reasons in public. But they admitted in court that if a tender had been called, there was a risk that someone else might have put in a bid. Indeed, there were other parties that had expressed an interest to provide managing agent services to AHTC. They admitted that if someone had put in a bid better than FMSS, they would have been duty-bound to consider that the bid. And they knew that FMSS would not have got the job if they had said they would only accept the better bid. So they were not prepared to take the risk that would have come from being honest, appoint their friends despite receiving better bids from others, and explain to the public why they have done so. But they were prepared to run the risk that came from being dishonest. And so they claimed they had no time to call a tender so that they could appoint FMSS without a tender. As I said, the right way was to go before the Tender and Contracts Committee to justify the decision to appoint their friends and have their reasons documented. Furthermore, and this is extremely important, if they want to appoint their friends, then they should have made sure that their friends charge less and not more than their previous managing agents. The previous managing agent was an established institution, while their friends had set up a fledgling company, which, as they admitted in court, had no experience in managing a town the size of AHTC. The court found that Ms. Lau Tia Khiang and Ms. Sylvia Lim have been fully aware that their conduct regarding the waiver of the tender was of questionable integrity. And to cover up their wrongdoing, they consciously and deliberately misled their own fellow town councillors, their own auditors, their constituents, and Parliament. As the High Court put it, there was a deliberate and calculated plan to, I quote, cloak and camouflage their wrongdoing. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a most serious finding. It means they knew that what they were doing was wrong, but nevertheless persisted in the wrong. And they deliberately set out to mislead everyone, including their own colleagues in the town council, so as to hide their wrongdoing. Mr. Speaker, I would now like to distribute Annex 3 to my speech. May I have your approval?
Yes, please.
Annex 3 is a compilation of the Workers' Party's misleading statements. The Workers' Party misled their own town councillors. They deliberately kept the decision to appoint FMSS away from a town council meeting. Instead, they delegated authority to Ms. Sylvia Lim so as to keep the other town councillors in the dark. They concealed their true motives from the rest of the town councillors. The Workers' Party misled their own auditors. Most disturbingly, Ms. Sylvia Lim asked Ms. Hao Weng Fan and Mr. Danny Loh to sanitize the reports on FMS's appointments as managing agent so it could, I quote, pass the auditor's eyes. Pass the auditor's eye. And she's a lawyer. Mr. Danny Loh was asked to draft the report. Ms. Hao Weng Fan and Mr. Danny Loh were the very officers and shareholders whose appointment was to be approved without tender. And here were Mr. Lau Tia Khiang and Ms. Sylvia Lim asking them to draft the comments on the report concerning their own appointments. The judge considered this to be extraordinary and stated these actions cast serious doubts on their honesty and integrity. The Workers' Party misled the public. In the Town Council's press release on 5th August 2011 concerning the appointments of FMSS, they falsely asserted that there was no time to call a tender. The judge found that this misled the public and the very constituents the MPs were elected to serve. As the judge put it, and I quote, "There was a concerted attempt to cloak the appointments of FMSS with a veneer of propriety in order to camouflage its true motive," unquote. The press release also falsely asserted that AHTC did not incur additional managing agent fees from appointing FMSS. Under cross-examination, Ms. Sylvia Lim admitted that this was not accurate, before finally admitting it's not true, and that she knew it was not true. She then had to agree that she had lied in the press release, which was disseminated to all Singaporeans, including the residents of AHTC. The Workers' Party misled Parliament. The judge found that it was not sufficiently urgent to justify waiver of tender. This means that when the Workers' Party told Parliament in 2015 that they waived tender because of urgency, they were misleading Parliament. Ms. Sylvia Lim said in Parliament in 2015, I quote, "For the first contract in 2011 for MA services, it was triggered as the incumbent MA, CPG Facilities Management, asked to be released from the contract with the TC for business reasons. There was an urgent need to put in place a computer system due to the termination of the former system in use." Unquote. Now, the judgment was crystal clear on this. And I quote, "There was no urgency or public interest that warranted the waiver of tender. It was neither CPG's announcement on 30th May 2011 nor AIM's withdrawal of TCMS that resulted in the tender being waived." Unquote. In waiving tender, Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Thia Khiang's, and I quote, "conduct was improper and the attempt to cloak the same with a veneer of truth and credibility collectively leads to the conclusion that they had not acted honestly." Unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, why were there so many false and misleading statements? When one reads the record, the AGO report, the KPMG report, the PwC reports, 3 court judgments, you will find misleading statements made by the Workers' Party MPs piling up. In some, waiver of tender was not justified, but they did this to appoint their friends. They knew that this was wrong and thus misled their own town councillors, misled their own auditors, misled the public, and misled Parliament to hide their wrongdoing. Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Thia Khiang not only misled Parliament, they also knowingly allowed Mr. Pritam Singh to mislead Parliament. Mr. Pritam Singh said in 2015, and I quote, "Where FMSS is a tenderer in a tender called by the Town Council, as was the case in 2011 for the managing agent contract, FMSS is kept at an arm's length and the China wall is built between FMSS and the Town Council." Unquote. We now know this to be false. The court found Hougang Fund had been heavily involved since early May 2011, soon after the general election, in setting up FMSS and in a plot to keep CPG in the dark. She was even involved in the preparation of the FMS's letter of intent, and as I noted earlier, in sanitizing the report on FMS's appointments as managing agents for the auditors. Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Thia Khiang knew very well they had not kept Howe at arm's length. Yet, they let Mr. Pritam Singh mislead this House without correcting him. When the Workers' Party's leaders let their own MPs mislead Parliament on their behalf, what does this say about the Workers' Party's integrity and values? The Workers' Party also misled Parliament that their safeguards for transactions with their friends were adequate. Ms. Sylvia Lim told this House in 2015, and I quote, "It was a policy that no cheque to FMSS of whatever amount could be issued unless either the Town Council chairman or one of the vice chairmen co-signed the cheque. Thus, it was not possible for FMSS to pay itself unless it was authorized by the Town Council chair or vice chair who have no interest in FMSS whatsoever." Unquote. Mr. Peng Eng Huat said, and I quote, "Our managing agent cannot make payments to themselves for the above services without the chairman or one of the vice chairmen to co-sign the cheque." Unquote. Now, these are half-truths at best, because in reality, there was no standing instruction that co-signatures were required on cheques for payments to FMSI, the EMSU provider. In fact, these claims are entirely untrue. Ms. Sylvia Lim admitted to the court that she did not personally check that each payment was justified. Despite all the reassurances they gave, there were payments to FMSS without the requisite co-signature of members of the Town Council. Mr. Speaker, sir, everything I presented is based on objective facts as established in court, after having heard the defendants under oath. The court found that Mr. Khiang and Ms. Sylvia Lim had breached their fiduciary duties, had not been honest, and questioned their integrity and lack of candor and transparency. Ms. Sylvia Lim remains a vice chairman of AHTC, while Mr. Khiang is a member of AHTC. Almost 4 weeks have passed since the court judgment. The Workers' Party has been totally silent on this matter. So has AHTC. This is why I have to ask in Parliament, what does the current chairman of AHTC, Mr. Faisal Manap, intend to do? At the minimum, will he apologize to residents of Aljunied-Hougang for letting them down? An apology will be the first step, a belated recognition that they had let residents down and an intention to put things right. Is he going to require the MPs so severely judged and found wanting by the court to recuse themselves from the Town Council affairs pending the disposal of any appeal they may file? Very serious adverse findings were made against them, findings that go to the heart of the integrity of these MPs and the deceptive manner in which they conducted the Town Council's affairs. How can they remain in charge of the Town Council's affairs as if it's business as usual? At the very least, should not the chairman and other town councillors require them to recuse themselves from handling the Town Council's financial matters as called for in this motion? Until the appeal is, if any, is over, will Mr. Faisal Manap remove Ms. Sylvia Lim as vice chairman? Or will he allow her to continue to be in a position where she can co-sign checks on behalf of AHTC? If AHTC were a company, Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Khiang would, at the very least, have been interdicted, prohibited or restrained from acting pending their appeal. Most likely, they would have been forced to leave the company a long time ago, when AGO and then KPMG made their findings, instead of being allowed to carry on in the same roles and enjoying the same degree of financial oversight over public funds. If they were members of a professional body, and many members of this House are members of professional body, their acts of dishonesty would have brought them before a disciplinary tribunal. As the earlier judgment of the High Court noted, they might have been exposed to civil liability or, in extreme scenario, to criminal liability. And in light of how they have misled this House and the absence of a response by the Town Council, I would like to know what, if anything, the Workers' Party's remaining MPs and NCMPs propose to do about these findings pending any appeal. Will they at long last be conducting their own investigations, or will they continue to dodge and deny? As Secretary General and Chairman, respectively, of the Workers' Party, Mr. Pritam Singh and Ms. Sylvia Lim are responsible for party standards and discipline. Both are themselves involved in the AHTC problem. But it is still their duty to act for the Workers' Party. Will they apologize on behalf of the Workers' Party? will they direct Mr. Faisal Manap to do the right thing to protect AHTC's governance? Will they temporarily stand aside themselves and allow some other Workers' Party CEC member to take charge of this matter? Again, a standard practice in the corporate world. If nothing is done from now till the appeal is concluded, we will be forced to conclude that the Workers' Party, by its inaction, in fact endorses the dishonest conduct and the breach of the fiduciary duties that's already occurred and is complicit in the wrongdoing. I hope that the Workers' Party will take action. There were other financial and governance lapses which occurred in AHTC. The Workers' Party has put them right, albeit after a long delay and after denying and resisting for many years. In doing so, the Workers' Party have shown that they are in fact capable of taking steps to put their house in order when further obfuscation and delay at last becomes untenable. Last year, KPMG found that AHTC had finally resolved all the lapses flagged in past audits since 2013. I've detailed earlier how the Workers' Party initially resisted the appointment of any independent auditor, then resisted the appointment of a Big Four accounting firm. Finally, with the court intervening and with the government's offering to pay for the accountants, KPMG was appointed. Almost 2 years after KPMG was appointed, AHTC finally cleared the audit. I'm sure that the town councillors will agree that they are the better for the audit and that their controls and processes are now much safer. Sometimes a bitter pill has to be taken so a sick system can be returned to health. Similarly, now that honesty, integrity, candor and transparency of some of the most senior Workers' Party members have been called into serious question, by the High Court no less, will the Workers' Party be willing to swallow another bitter pill and take action? If the Workers' Party wants the privilege of representing Singaporeans in Parliament, they cannot be silent on this. Beyond the specific facts of this case, this episode reminds us of the need for integrity and probity. We hope that the Workers' Party MPs and all non-constituency MPs and nominated MPs will agree that MPs should be held to the following standards in Singapore. MPs should not mislead their fellow town councillors or hide things from them. MPs should not mislead the public. MPs should not mislead Parliament. MPs should not mislead the court. MPs should not let their friends make money at the public's expense. And MPs should always act with integrity and with candor and transparency. I'm moving this motion because integrity is of the utmost importance in elected officials. Singapore has succeeded only because we have maintained a culture of honesty and integrity in the public service. Those who participate in politics must be honest, upright people who can be trusted to uphold the public interest, speak the truth, even at a cost to themselves, and admit their mistakes when they have done wrong. They have to uphold these principles, even when it is politically inconvenient to do so. And we need to do this, whether you are a government or opposition MP, whether you represent a constituency in Parliament, or are an NCMP or NMP. Because if we cannot trust a politician to tell the truth, we cannot trust him to safeguard public funds. to put the public interest ahead of personal gain, or to make decisions in the best interest of Singapore and Singaporeans. For this reason, we have always taken any accusations of dishonesty against political leaders very seriously. Certainly, the 4G PAP leaders intend to continue maintaining the high standards which we have achieved and upheld for so many years since the PAP first formed the government in 1959. For we must ensure that MPs, both government and opposition, are men and women of integrity. It is in the vital interest of Singapore and Singaporeans for members of the opposition also to be persons of integrity, and not persons who cannot be trusted with public funds, much less national responsibilities. I might add, Mr. Speaker, that we have had such upright, honourable men among the opposition. I might mention Mr. David Marshall, Mr. A.P. Raja, and Mr. Chiam See Tong. If I might be permitted another personal note, Mr. Lau Thia Khiang ran his town council well when he was MP for Hougang. Each of our prime ministers, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, Mr. Goh Chok Tong, and our current prime minister, has espoused and upheld the values of honesty, transparency, and integrity. Each made integrity, honesty, and incorruptibility fundamental values in government. And they walked the talk. If any PAP minister or MP is accused of lying, the Prime Minister would do a thorough investigation. And if they are found dishonest, serious consequences would inevitably follow. The court has made very serious and severe statements about Mr. Lau Thia Khiang and Ms. Sylvia Lim. It concluded that their conduct of town council matters lacked candour and transparency, and that they had not acted honestly and with integrity. Imagine if a court had made such findings against PAP town councillors. Is it even conceivable that a PAP MP, whom the court has described in these terms, can remain in the town council and continue handling public funds as if nothing had happened? At the very least, he would have been asked to go on leave, pending any effort to clear his name through an appeal. What sort of questions would the Workers' Party be asking the PAP? What sort of demands would they be making of the government? The opposition must hold themselves to the same standards that they rightly apply to the government. This is in fact precisely why we have our system of town councils. It is an important way Singaporeans can judge for themselves who deserves to be given the responsibility to run the country, whether it is a government MP or an opposition MP. It allows them to identify which MPs and which political parties can walk the talk, manage public monies, and show that they can actually get things done. Town councils allow political parties to prove their matter even if they are not the government. If a party can manage a town council well, it proves its competence to conduct good, clean administration. And their leaders can show that they are credible and deserve to be entrusted with broader responsibilities. If not, it is just as well that everybody finds out early before too much damage is done. Indeed, as I just noted, Mr. Lau Thia Khiang himself won his spurs when he was MP for Hougang and ran his town council. Similarly, Mr. Chiam See Tong in running Potong Pasir Town Council. So when the Workers' Party argues against town council system, instead of putting right their lapses, what does it mean? Do they think that opposition only exists to poke holes in government policy, bandy around the slogan of First World Parliament, but shoulder no other responsibility for residents? Do they think opposition MPs should not be held to the same standard as government MPs, even though at each election we are asking the same thing of voters, their trust? Surely this is not the sort of opposition that Singaporeans need. The Workers' Party cannot stay silent on this. Almost 4 weeks have passed since judgment was published. In all that time, the Workers' Party has said nothing. They have not apologized for the shortcomings that the courts, and before the courts, AGO and KPMG have established. They have not accounted for their dishonesties and untruths, nor have they said whether they intend to put right the many wrongs that the court has uncovered, and if so, how. This is not the way to conduct yourself in politics. Trust between the electorate and elected officials is vital in democratic societies. When trust breaks down, the people will feel that their leaders are disconnected and only seem to be looking after themselves and their friends. We see this happening in many countries. We must never let this happen in Singapore. This is a long account. I thank members of this House for your patience. Mr. Speaker, please allow to say a few points in Mandarin. 我今天提出这项动议，是因为对民选议员来说，诚信是最重要的。高庭宣判林瑞莲议员和刘成强议员在处理阿育尼后港市政会的事务上行为不诚实、不透明，违反受托责任。无论他们接下来有没有上诉，他们都应该回避一切阿育尼后港市政理事会相关的财政事务。这场风波已经历8年，涉关几百万元公款。从审计署 AGO 的报告、毕马威 KPMG 和普华永道 PwC 提交的审计报告，由阿育尼后港市政理事会自己委托的独立委员会发起诉讼，以及高庭的听证，都一一证明了2位议员犯下了过失。在过去的8年，他们有不止一次的机会坦诚自己的过失，但是他们没有那么做，反而一错再错，不是含糊不清误导大家，就是保持沉默。希望大家会随着时光淡忘过失。工人党在2011年大选赢得阿育尼集选区，他们希望委任一家他们信任的公司管理市政会，是可以理解。但是林瑞莲议员和刘成强议员没有通过正确的程序操作，例如他们应该公开招标，并评估所有投标的公司，把委任管理公司 FM Solutions and Services 或 FMSS 的因素记录在市政的会议记录里。他们没有通过公开招标就委任自己的亲信管理市政会，还故意向其他的同僚隐瞒这个计划。在过程中 ，FMSS 赚取了巨额盈利。但令人担心的是，他们被拆穿时，他们不愿意为自己的行为承担责任，反而混淆视听， 处处为难审计师，误导法庭，误导国会，误导居民，甚至误导国人。从高庭宣判至今，已经将近4个星期，工人党仍然保持沉默。他们辜负了阿育尼和后港的居民，他们没有向居民道歉，他们也没有要求林瑞麟议员和刘成强议员回避市政会的财政事务。如果工人党仍然没有做出回应，无动于衷，我们只能总结：工人党认同这些不诚实和违反受托责任的行为。我希望工人党会采取正确的行动，纠正财务上和管理体制上的疏失。虽然良药苦口，但我们也要对症下药，才能治标又治本。如果工人党要继续代表新加坡人发言，他们现在就不能保持沉默。对国人来说，民选议员的诚信是最重要的。新加坡的管理体制以诚信和问责为基础，这是我们必须维护的。我再强调，新加坡的管理体制以诚信和问责为基础，这是我们必须维护的。从政的人必须诚实、正直，才能取得民众的信任，为他们服务。即使有时情况对自己不利，也要勇于承认自己的错误，并纠正错误。在一些国家，政治人物缺乏诚信已经是一种常态。政治人物不可信，就很难和民众建立起互信的关系。民众无法信任他，就不相信他们能够把民众的利益摆在自己的利益之前，为民众做出最好的决定。自独立以来，因为政治领袖和公共服务领袖一直把诚信视为核心价值观和治国的核心原则，新加坡才能不断的发展和进步。对新加坡的未来也同样至关重要。无论你是执政党议员、反对党议员、非选区议员或官委议员，都应该认同诚信是我们的核心的价值观。我们有责任确保第4代领导人维护一个廉洁的体系，有正确的治国理念，继续维持人民行动党自建国以来的高标准。如果一位行动党的议员犯错，总理绝对不会坐视不理。林瑞麟议员身为律师，却明知故犯。刘成强议员是资深政坛人物，他妥当管理后港市政会超过20年，我一直都很尊敬他。所以，当我看到高庭对刘成强议员的裁决时，我感到非常失望。最后，让我重申，诚信和品德对议员和公务员非常重要。我们应该以身作则，坚守诚信、诚实和清廉的核心价值。我希望阿育尼后港市政会能够向居民负责。我也要求林瑞麟议员和刘成强议员回避一切市政会相关的财政事务。Mr. Speaker, to sum up what this motion is about, it is about integrity and character expected of public officials and MPs. In politics, we must uphold the fundamental values of integrity, honesty, and incorruptibility, not by words, but by deeds. We know the words of the Workers' Party. They claim to stand for transparency and accountability. But now, after 8 long years, we know that their deeds show the contrary. They appointed their friends to manage the town council at a higher cost than the previous managing agents. They concealed the real facts and manipulated the circumstances of this appointment, even to the extent of misleading their fellow town councillors. They then told the public, their auditors and Parliament untruths about these circumstances. They refused to give auditors documents that might have shed light on their wrongdoing. Even after these facts were uncovered by independent auditors, they took no action. It took the independence panel that they appointed to finally bring them to court to set things straight. And even before the court, they continued to perpetuate untruths. The consequences of what the Workers' Party councillors have done has fallen on the residents. Under the management of FMSS, the town council ran up deficits of up to $2 million by the 3rd year. Meanwhile, their friends, FMSS, made a profit of $3.2 million in their 2nd year. Even after all this has been made public, the Workers' Party has stayed silent. Maybe they hope that Singaporeans will forget or forgive them. Playing the victim or underdog may be par for the course in politics. But there are important matters at stake. Public funds, residents' monies, the estates that Singaporeans come home to. We cannot sweep things under the carpet. All that this House is asking for is for Ms. Sylvia Lim and Mr. Lau Thia Khiang to recuse themselves from dealing with or having oversight over financial matters until the court case is concluded. Given the court's findings, this is the least that they can do. So it falls on all members of this House to ask the Workers' Party what it intends to do to put its own house in order. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move.